feel a lot less stable a year ago. I mean, I know that things feel unstable now, but it did feel a lot less stable a year ago.
It's not better. It's not better. I feel like in many ways we've allowed ourselves to understand how unstable it is. It was such a shock 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It was such a shock to.
Well, and this was written really more in that in-between time. It was like around, this was around now, actually. It was like around that I wrote this. It was somewhere like late November, early December, where things felt very chaotic and uncertain. Where it was all going to lead.
Right. Right. We certainly, in so many ways during this pandemic, the last 2.5 years, we've lost our structures. We've lost it's like if we had a scaffolding holding us up, we have lost the scaffolding now.
And that's actually the chatot, that word, it basically means like structure or foundation, or it's not quite the same as like yesod as foundation, but
What's the root?
it should be shin tav hey, I would think, or is it tet? Ooh, I have to check now.
No, I don't want to bother you right now.
No, well, no, it would be in here, in our program.
Well, here.
Yep. It would be shin tav hey, which is very interesting too, because that root also has to do with, there are roots that have multiple meanings, and another meaning of that root has to do with drinking.
Shotet.
Yeah, to drink.
Lishtot.
But it must be a root that has, sometimes if you have a root where there's different derivations, like one might derive from Akkadian and the other one from Aramaic, and then you'll have a root with multiple meanings, most likely the case.
It's very cool.
I'll check my lexicon at some point.
I'm going to look. I'm going to look. How are you doing?
We're good.
Are you up to reading? Are you up to reading tonight?
If I am.
Did you come and play the chair and then like stand here and
Absolutely.
God bless you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Shabbos.
How are you? Doing all right? How are you?
You're all right.
Yeah. It's not a deal.
Did your car slip a little bit? Mine slipped a little bit on my way over. Did your car slip a little? Did my car slip?
I did not have a problem.
Oh.
Doesn't mean that we'll have it on the way.
You don't?
So, you don't have to know about it?
No. No, I just slipped that top off. You were doing.
I don't know.
Come on in, give me the chair.
Really need to get, I keep meaning to ask Steve, somebody needs to, it's upside down. Somebody
What?
needs
Summer,
to- At some point,
you'll remember that this is upside down, right?
the mezuzah,
And it just needs to be swapped. The Hebrew is literally upside down.
it's been that way for a while.
I'm writing a note.
Okay, write yourself a note here.
I keep forgetting.
Thank you.
Did I hear correctly? You have the cover?
I did, yeah. Well, on the other side of it now, fortunately, very mild. I was not used to it, so. Just one of those things that I wear and I'm in the office.
really slippery, but that's okay, because the officer just heard and he's gonna salt it.
Wow, he's really bored.
I know. Bye. Did you already salt the parking lot?
Yeah.
Yeah. Summer did just salt it before, but. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you guys didn't salt. But we have this officer tonight who just wants to help, so he's salting you guys. Yeah. You're the first ones in that
it.
Yeah. 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Given that it's, given the weather conditions and that it's New Year's Eve.
Lashana Tova, everybody.
Lashana Tova.
Gee, Rabbi Bites, you sure look different tonight.
I know. I'm not wearing a green or yellow shirt and a cute tie like he usually does.
Oh, is it my coat? It's too cold. I do not like winter weather. Oh, by the way, I lived in Jonesboro for about 6 months, almost a year,
Did you really?
right during the Olympics.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
It was crazy then.
Yeah.
My gosh.
Jonesboro, the back door that Sherman came in through.
All through Atlanta, there are these big metal signs everywhere, like in all the neighborhoods that say, General Sherman marched through here on such and such a date with X number of men, and he did this, and it was run, I mean, it was amazing.
Well, I like, the best story I like is Sherman had a girlfriend that lived in Savannah. He had dated her or something while he was in the academy or something, years before. So he went to visit her, and she had a daughter, and the daughter gets up, this little girl, you know. The little girl gets up and starts going through Sherman's hair and says, "Mommy, he doesn't have any horns."
Oh, no.
Because they considered him the devil down there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Enter, your mic is still off.
Am I on? No.
I got it now.
I am? Oh,
Yeah,
I got it now.
testing.
yeah, you want to take it home with you?
No.
Tell me when I welcome people. Are we starting?
I think we're good.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome and Shabbat Shalom. You are in the right place. My name is Leslie Koff. I am partnering with Cantor Jacob Namey this evening while Rabbi Beich, our normal clergy, is out of town. Thank you, Cantor Namey, for partnering with me. For our people here on site, we would like to thank you for being here with us this evening. And we'd like to remind you to please keep your mask on at all times, covering your nose and your mouth. And if you are joining us online on YouTube, in the description below the screen, you will find the link for the virtual prayer book and also the link for the program.
And so we'll gather in our space here with a melody of Shemitah, of releasing, of letting go, of allowing to rest. Ya la la la, ya da 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 da, ooh, ooh, ya la la la, ya da 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 da, ooh, ya la 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 la, ya la la la.
Again, welcome. This evening we are sharing an opportunity for grace. There is this story from the Talmud, a story about Adam. Adam they call Adam HaKadmon, the first Adam, in winter. Adam felt the days growing shorter, and when it was in the dark part of the year, like now, Adam thought that somehow because the days were short and so dark, that he had somehow sinned and that he was being punished. So he stayed up all night fasting and crying, and Eve cried with him. But then in the morning, the sun returned, the dawn broke, and he said, oh, okay, the sun has returned. And he understood that the days get shorter, and then they get longer, and that this is just the order of the world. Adam understood, as we understand, that even though it is dark, that the light will return. Page 121. Help me perfect my ways of loving and caring. Help me to make myself whole, so that I may honor your name and create a world of justice and peace. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
And on the theme of light, we're going to move into our little program, which you have, or which you can get from the link in the description. And we're going to sing Or Zarua, which is that light is sown for the righteous.
And these words is a combination of words, ancient and new. Words from Psalm 97, one of our psalms for Kabbalat Shabbat, and words written by young people in a Reformed Jewish camp movement in 2000. So we hear these words, old and new, about allowing light into ourselves and being lights ourselves. Or Zarua latzadik u'yishrei lev simcha. 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 We must keep our hopes alive. We must raise our voices high. We must hold each other tight. We must stand up in the night and be alive. Or Zarua latzadik u'yishrei lev simcha. Or Zarua latzadik u'yishrei lev simcha. We must spread our love around. We must feel this spiritual sound.
עוז הרוח לצדיק ולישראל שמחה. We are going to continue on page 138 for L'Chadodi. We are going to do verses 1, 2, 5, and 9.
Ya-da-da-da-da, Ya-da-da-da-da, לקראת קלה. Ya-da-da-da-da, כדי שבת, כדי שבת נקבלה. Ya-da-da-da-da, לך אדוני. Ya-da-da-da-da, לקראת קלה. Ya-da-da-da-da, כדי שבת, כדי שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור
בדיבור אחד,
השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד,
שמו אחד, לשם
ולתפארת ולתהילה. Ya-da-da-da-da, לך אדוני. Ya-da-da-da-da, לקראת קלה. Ya-da-da-da-da, פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת,
וכוון אחד,
היא מקור הברכה.
מראש מקדם נשוכה,
סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. Ya-da-da-da-da, לך אדוני. Ya-da-da-da-da, לקראת קלה. Ya-da-da-da-da, פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה.
התעוררי,
התעוררי, טיבה אורך ומי אורי. אורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. Ya-da-da-da-da, לך אדוני. Ya-da-da-da-da, לקראת קלה. Ya-da-da-da-da, פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה. טוב אמוני, עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. יאי לי לי, יא-לה-לה-לה-לי, לך אדוני. יא-לה-לה-לה-לי, לקראת קלה. Shabbat, b'nei Shabbat nekabelai, yanananai lecha Adoni, yanananai likrat kana, yanananai b'nei Shabbat, b'nei Shabbat nekabelai.
We're going to continue on page 140 with Tov Lehodot,
A psalm for Shabbat.
Song for Shabbat.
Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat. Tov lehodot Adonai. Tov lehodot Adonai. Ulezamer, ulezamer, l'shimcha elyon. Tov lehodot Adonai. Tov lehodot Adonai. Tov lehodot Adonai. Ulezamer, ulezamer, l'shimcha elyon. Tov lehodot Adonai. Lehagi baboker chasecha. Lehagi baboker chasecha. Ve'emunatcha baleilot, ve'emunatcha baleilot. Tov lehodot Adonai. Lehagi baboker chasecha. Lehagi baboker chasecha. Ve'emunatcha baleilot, ve'emunatcha baleilot. Tov lehodot Adonai.
We're going to continue on page 146 with the Shema. I would like everyone to rise. I invite you to rise, but I also want to mention that this is a call and response. Like many of our prayers, the cantor leads one part and then we respond. And in some parts of the service, then I'll read a part and you'll respond, and then I'll respond to you because this is how we are going to get through the world and through all of this, by responding to each other.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach.
Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed.
Top of page 147. I'll read the first part and then you'll join me together. There is one who sings the song of his own life, finding everything within himself. There is one who leaves the circle of herself and sings the song of her people together. There is one whose voice rings with the song of humanity, hoping for the highest perfection. And there is one who rises even higher, uniting with all creatures, with all worlds, filling the universe with song. Nevarech, let us bless.
Uma'avir yom u'mevdil ben yom u'ben laila, Adonai tzevaot shemo, El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv aravim.
Page 150, please.
Ahavat olam,
Beit
Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Amcha ahavta. אותנו לימדת, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו באורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה, נגה יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכו לעולם ועד.
Page 154, Behafta, you can feel free to be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
At the top of page 157, we'll read responsibly. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before we ever stood at Sinai's foot.
That wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness,
that there is no way to get there from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Page 158, Mi Chamocha.
Mi Chamocha, Ba'elim Adonai, Mi Chamocha, Nedar B'Kodesh, once more, Mi Chamocha, Ba'elim Adonai, Mi Chamocha, arba kodesh. Repeat after me. Nora. Tehilot, tehilot. Ose, ose. Fele, fele. Nora. Tehilot. Ose, fele. Alutecha, Rabuvanecha. Ukeayam Mimei Moshe Miriam Zeh. Anu ve'ameru. Adonai, Imod, Leolam, Ma'ed. Adonai, Imod, Leolam, Ma'ed. Nai, 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 nai. Nai, 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 nai. Nai, 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 nai. Nai, 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 nai. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Guess we should have told them that was a call and response also. Sorry, guys. We got it. Top of page 160, Hashki Venu. We're going to do the Craig Taubman. I think we are. Yeah.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Ve'avidenu Shomreinu Lechaim. 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 Ushman Seiteinu Uloheinu Lechaim Shalom Ve'ata ve'adolam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Ve'avidenu Shomreinu Lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Ve'avidenu Shomreinu Lechaim. Baruch atah Adonai Haporei Sukkot Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
So we're going to continue with the tefillah on 164. I'm going to ask you to rise in a second, but I want to tell you a thing that I learned this week that I thought was just very cool. So it turns out that in the Talmud it says one should not be overly praising of God and how amazing God is and thank you for the sky and the rainbows and the rain and the bunny rabbits, and because God thinks that's crazy. This is in the Talmud, I'm telling you. They say that in the Amidah there is the proper order for all the ways that we're supposed to thank God and praise God and tell God that they're wonderful, but like within the limits. It's interesting because it's prescribed. So we're now going to do the Amidah, which thanks God for all of the things in order, right? But we're not gonna also add rainbows and bunny rabbits and freezing rain and whatever, because we don't wanna act crazy. So let's stand on page 164 and let's have the Amidah together, the tefillah. We're starting with Adonai Sfaitach. I can't speak. Sfatai Tiftach. Go ahead.
Adonai Sfatai Tiftach ufi Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imachot, U'mevii Geula Livnei B'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Continuing on page 168. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atah Rav le'hoshia, Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem, Mechalkel chaim b'chesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim v'rofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umikayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha bar gevurot, Umidom elach, Melech mevit, Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lehachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hakol.
Page 170.
Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, U'kdoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
So before we pray silently, beginning on page 176, I'm going to just offer a few remarks. Please be seated. So this week, our Torah portion is Ve'era, and we are basically in the wilderness. It seems like we're always in the wilderness. Doesn't it seem that way? Honestly, for the last 2 years, for sure, I would say we've been in the wilderness. So the last time that we were in the wilderness, aside from the last 2 years, which was probably thousands of years ago, we walked. 1 foot in front of the other, 40 years in fact. We walked, we ate manna, we looked at the skies. We prayed. Also, it might be important to note here that the word 40, because 40 years, in Italian it's quarantina. And the word quarantine comes from quarantina, meaning 40. So do what you want with that information. So we prayed, we walked, we didn't watch cable news. We were in the desert after all. We fed the children and we fed ourselves. But now, this time that we're in the wilderness, it is our turn to carry on, just like those who came before us, and so many who will come after, whose job it will be to carry on. It's our turn to just carry on right now. There is this little story about a hummingbird. a very small little hummingbird, and, unfortunately, a forest fire. What does the hummingbird do? He says to himself, I am very small, but I can carry water. You're thinking, it's a forest fire, what can he do? But the hummingbird, being a very brave little hummingbird, he fills his beak, tiny little beak, with just a few drops of water, all he can carry, and he flies to the fire and he drops it on the fire. And then he goes back and gets a few more drops of water and brings it back and drops it. And that's what he does. And you're thinking, a few drops of water, even from a hummingbird, cannot possibly extinguish a forest fire. But you know, this bird is doing what he's able to do. In the wilderness, we cannot be expected to fix everything. We cannot. But neither should we despair. If you can, pray. Faith is not a thing that comes easy. It is a muscle-needing exercise. Like the hummingbird, get a few drops of water and bring it to the fire. Put on your own oxygen mask first. Tend to your life, to those you love, to each other. In dark times, we do small things. There will be plenty of time later for bigger ones. Reach for what comes next, because something is certainly coming next. Something we will want. For now, dream of the world to be. Feel free to have a kind of a silent prayer inside your heart, something between pages 176 and 183 that you'd like to read for yourself.
When we meet back together, we'll be meeting back on page 180. Nachamu, Ami Yomar Elohechem. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami Yomar Elohechem. Comfort us in our wilderness. Comfort us as we struggle to take care of one another. Comfort us in our wilderness. Comfort us as we struggle with this world. Nachamu, Nachamu.
couple things I want to say. First of all, if you remember a couple years ago, we changed the way we sing Ose Shalom. We added that part at the end. That's Al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, which is something that we didn't have before, all the years I was growing up, decades. The Al Kol Yoshvei Tevel is, and all of the inhabitants of the earth. So we're not just asking for peace for ourselves, for our community, but we're extending ourselves and we're reaching. And if you didn't know that that's what we're doing, we're trying a little harder. Kiddush, right? Yay? I'm following things okay so far. Here we go. Yay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Is this one?
That one will be for you if you
Oh,
like.
good, I'm excited.
And so our Kiddush can be found on page 123. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'ahava uvratzon inchilanu. Zikaron le'maaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila le'mikra'e kodesh, zecher litziat Mitzrayim, ki banu v'charta, ve'otanu kidashta, Mikol Hamim V'Shabbat Kodshecha Ve'ava Uvratzon Inchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh B'Shabbat L'cha.
Fun. Okay, this is good. Mask on. Okay. So I want to tell you another small little story before we move on. So I gave you my remarks. I talked about the wilderness, and right before the service, Cantor, Naomi, and I were talking about how it really does feel like we're in a wilderness, and it feels like we're even deeper than we were. And it seems in some ways that we are kind of losing the structures of what we had before. If my life was being held up by a scaffolding isn't quite as strong as it was. But, you know, we're okay. And then the cantor said, I have this song. Now tell about your song.
So during the pandemic, I engaged with a group that was studying the Psalms. We took a deep dive. We took one psalm at a time. We probably only got about through 30 of them in a year and a half. So we were really taking our time. And about a year ago, we were in the middle of Psalm 11, which is not one of the more well-known psalms. But if you were to take a look at the text, you would see that it is one where things feel very unstable. The psalmist expresses a sense of being surrounded by enemies and danger, some of it seen, some of it unseen, projectiles, but also shadows that obscure the speaker's vision. And I have to say that a year ago, it felt very poignant. both with the pandemic, where things were happening in our nation politically, what was happening in the world more broadly. And there's an anchor verse. A lot of our psalms have a verse around which the whole structure of the poem is really hinges. And the verse 3 of Psalm 11 says, Ki hashatot yeharesun, tzadik mapa'al. When the foundations have been destroyed, what is a righteous person to do? And it struck me that that question can actually be heard in two different ways. Either you could have it be very throwing up your hands, right? Like when the foundations have been destroyed, like what can one do, right? What can you do? Very almost rhetorical, cynical even. Or it can really be asked with the expectation of an answer. When the foundations have been destroyed, what should the righteous person do? And so when I was thinking about that and contemplating that, I started writing this piece that I want to share with you all now. Because I think that, the words can be found
It's in the program.
in our program, in our supplement, which I think that I sometimes shift between hearing the question in one of those two ways, and sometimes I hear the question both ways at the same time. And I think as we're going into our new year, I'm hoping that we can hear it in the latter way, more than the former. That the question that we ask, what can we do, is one that we actually hope that we can answer, that we expect an answer from ourselves and from one another. What can we do when the world is a wilderness and no one can show us the way? When everything's shifting, the air full of bitterness, does anyone know what to say? When even the very foundations are crumbling, a chasm between me and you. When even the righteous can't keep from stumbling, does anyone know what to do? Ki hashatot keharesu, tzadik mapa'al. Ki hashatot yeharesu, tzadik mapa'al, mapa'al. What can we do with the shadows surrounding us and danger at every turn? When arrows are flying, God takes account of us as if we have something to learn. Is there still a chance for the good of humanity to shine from a righteous heart? Is there still a hand that could lead us to sanity, at least hold our hand in the dark? Ki hashatot keharesu, tzadik mapa'al. Ki hashatot yeharesu, tzadik mapa'al, mapa'al. Ki hashatot yeharesu, tzadik Mapa'al, Mapa'al.
Beautiful. So we're going to continue our service with the Mishaberach, our prayer for healing, on page 371 in your book.
We have quite a number of people on our healing list that we know of, people whom we know of who are connected to people, members of our community, close to 100 actually names on our list. We hold all of them in our hearts, even though we don't, because of now the very public nature of our online worship, we don't share their names out loud online. But they know that we're thinking of them, and that we are sending out our strength and our prayers to them. And so as we hold them in our hearts as well, we also take an opportunity for those who are in this space, as well as those who are joining us online. If there's anyone that you're holding in your heart right now that you think could use some wholeness or healing, I invite you to say their names out loud or in your heart, or if you're watching us online, to put their name in the comments section. So for those who are in this space, if there's any names that we should be thinking of. We take all of them into our thoughts and into our prayers and into our hearts as we offer this prayer for healing, Mishaberach, on page 371. Mishaberach Avotenu Mikor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach Imotenu Mikor HaBracha Avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Let's continue with the Aleinu on page 586, and together we can rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, la'teit gedula li'yotzer Bereshit, shehu noteh shamayim ve'yosed aretz, u'moshav yikaro b'shamayim mima'al, u'shchinatu zo b'govhei meromim, u'Eloheinu ein od. Anachnu koreim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei Melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu.
Page 591.
Hold on. V'ne'emar v'hai Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom ha'u yeh Adonai echad u'shmo Zecher Tzadik Livracha, May the memory of the righteous be for a blessing. We always take an opportunity anytime we are gathered to pray together, to call to mind those who are no longer with us in body, but whose memory we hold, and that influences us, that sustains us, that inspires us. In particular, we call to mind those who have passed recently within the last 30 days, in whom we are in the period of Shaloshim, but also all of those who have passed at this season in years past. We will offer those names that are connected to members of our community, but then we'll also invite, if anybody is here is holding somebody else in their heart who is no longer with them, that they are remembering, so that we can also add them to our list as well. Recently in our community, we have had losses connected to members of our community. Leah Graff Duckworth, niece of Ginny Graff, cousin of Lynn Ballesta and Stacy Graff. Karen Sessler Stein, sister of Greg Sessler. And Michael Schwartz, brother of Bob Schwartz. And to their names, we connect the names of all of our loved ones who are no longer with us, and particularly, again, those whose Yahrzeit and whose anniversary of passing we mark on this Shabbat. We remember Adolf Adler, Roger Anderson, Alfred Bernstein, Ethel Boner, Arthur Breslau, Evelyn Brodsky, Harry Cohen, Ruth Cohen, Alfred R. DeTulio, Sidney E. Frank, Belle G. Friedman, Deborah K. Friedman, Richard Guilford, Estelle Goldenberg, Ken Herr, Carolyn Kaplan, Ralph Castle, Donald LaBelle, Midge Loring, Dr. Peter Mazer, Frank M. Melnick, Frank Miller, Frank J. Moria, Mabel Pizer, Ruth Ravitch, Esther Reitman, Fred Rosenberg, Millie Ross, Leah Sagel, Marion Schiebel, Herman Shapiro, Deborah Sukni, Morris F. Swede, Robert Elmer Vlach, Sam Winston, Joseph H. Wolf, Jane Woolman, and Maria Zoline. If there are others either in this room with us here or who are joining us online who have other names that we should be remembering on this night, I invite you to share them.
Steve Shapiro.
Thank you.
Let's rise together on page 598.
And offer the words of the Mourner's Kaddish.
Yep. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabba.
Ve'alma divrach yiruteh ve'yamlich malchuteh. V'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uv'izman kari ve'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach le'alam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitada v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudsha b'rechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata ta'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama Rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru. Amen.
Amen.
Zichronam livracha. May their memories be for a blessing. You may be seated.
So I have a few announcements for you. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. New Year's Eve, slippery streets, and thank you for being here, and thank you for joining us online as well. Again, my name is Leslie Koff. I'm a guest leader standing in for Rabbi Beitch this evening. Thank you, Cantor Nami, for being such a wise and skilled partner. Thank you to our tech support, Summer Koff. Also, tonight, Temple Bethel Sisterhood has sponsored Oneg to Go, which is a basket of pre-wrapped cookies. Feel free to take your cookie on your way out. Thank you to Sisterhood for that donation. Our next B'nai Mitzvah is Saturday, January 29th at 10:30 in the morning, the Bat Mitzvah of Etta Rice, daughter of Katie and Josh Rice. Now, COVID announcements. Thank you for wearing your masks properly and for getting vaccinated. Yes, we're giggling. And also, please be sure to sign the contact tracing form that we have in the lobby. If you test positive for COVID-19 within 5 days after being in person here at Temple Bethel, please contact Stephanie Kushner at exec@tbemadison.org. If we receive notification of anyone who was present testing positive within the 5-day period, we will notify those who were present. So thank you for signing in upon arrival. Okay, this Shabbat, tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, Torah study will be led by Steve Olson. Monday, January 3rd, the office will be closed for the New Year's Day observance. Shabbat services next week, Friday, January 7th, 6 o'clock p.m. here and also online. We have Shabbat. And Saturday the 8th at 9 a.m., Torah study will be led by Kendra Sager. Please go to tbemadison.org for more details and also for registration of the events to get the links. In our program tonight, which was so awesome, on the second page we have Ma'pa'al, which we sang, and at the bottom is Nachamu, which the cantor sang a little earlier, which translates to comfort, oh comfort my people, comfort us in the wilderness. What we need now is comfort, and so we offer and we share together Nachamu.
Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami Yomar Elohechem. 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 Comfort us in our wilderness. Comfort us as we struggle to take care of one another. Comfort us in our wilderness. Comfort us as we struggle with this world. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami Yomar Elohechem. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami Yomar Elohechem. Ami Yomar Elohechem.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Have a safe and joyful week.
And a happy and healthy new year.
Happy and healthy New Year. Yay. We done? I made some mistakes. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
guys for coming. Be careful driving home.